Welcome to the hottest real estate topics on the planet, keeping you up to date with all the creative ways to buy and sell real estate without bank qualifying, so anyone can build real income starting today. Here is another great show with Dealmaker Bill and Pete the Rookie.
All right, here we are at another episode of Flipping Houses for Rookies. And yet again, I got the number one rookie, but she's changed her title this morning as Dealmaker's daughter.
Yes, I did.
I have Jessie with me this morning again.
Hello, everyone.
Big, fat, really big, fat thank you for Jessie bailing me out today. I actually had a guest speaker for this week, which we will do next week, and something happened, and at the last minute, Jessie said, "Yeah, Dad, I'll help you." So here she be.
Always. So
we kind of changed the agenda a little bit, and here we are. We're on episode number 269. I know that I said this before, but a few episodes ago, back in the mid-260s, I had COVID and was actually hospitalized, and my children, meaning Jessie and Emma, did some replays, which is why if you are listening, through the podcast channel, you'll notice that there's some replays. It was because I was pretty ill. I'm apologizing because I am still recovering from that, and I have a cough. So I figured either keep giving you replays or you deal with my coughing, and I figured you would deal with my coughing better. So here we go. So the name of today's episode is, where do you find high quality prospects, and how do you talk to them smoothly? Where do you find high quality prospects, and how do you talk to them smoothly? So here's a description. When infamous means he's not very popular. When infamous bank robber Willy Sutton was asked why he robbed banks, he replied, "Because that's where the money is." Way too many novice and pro creative real estate entrepreneurs spend so much time and effort trying to find leads. They use human capital and money to find and talk to motivated real estate sellers whom would love to hear creative offers. That's like their goal. It's like their number one thing in life. Like, how can I find that motivated seller that would want to hear my creative offer, right? All right. So let me catch up to myself. Even worse, if if these novice or pro investors do run across a motivated prospect, what do they say without having a nervous breakdown if it's their first time? Listen to this special podcast and learn how to not use a shotgun approach to find the right prospects for you, but instead use a rifle approach with absolute precision. So when it's done this way, it takes about 80 to 90% of the work out of finding deals. When you are done today, finding prospects is going to be like when you were a kid and there was a snowstorm and you wanted to make money on a snowy day by shoveling sidewalks. You would walk down the street and you would see which sidewalks were shoveled and which ones weren't, right? So you knew where to go.
That's right? A brilliant analogy.
That's what we're going to do today. We're going to show you how to do that. And thank you for the compliment. So first of all, if you go into my description of wherever you're watching me or wherever you are, just tilt your camera up a little bit because you kind of got your head chopped off. Yeah, and I don't want you to have a chopped off head. Thank you. You're too beautiful for that. So in the description, there's a link. Here's what I did. I'm gonna talk about some checklists today and some things that you can use throughout the conversation. I don't want you to think that they're hidden from you. I created about a month ago. Was right after I was ill. In fact, I did it while I was ill just to kind of keep my mind. I don't know when I did it. I don't remember. It doesn't matter. A 14-day email course. This course is designed for you to be able to, every day you get an email for 14 days. And I reveal everything, like how to do the paperwork. I give you checklists. I give you guides, like on how to go find leads and where to do them so you can print them out and actually look at them. What a lot of people have been doing is they've been printing the emails and putting them in a notebook and using it as like a little book.
It's a great idea.
Yeah. So I've had tremendous success. This started with me having a contest of getting people into houses because I was challenging my podcast listeners and my email subscribers to actually go out and talk to people. Okay. So what I did is I generated this 14-day email course to give them all the advantages they could get to actually do a deal. Well, it turned into something else because people were using it and getting great success. So if you go in the link of this description, as I'm talking to you today, that link is there so you can go get all the documents or whatever you need or whatever I'm talking about, and it's for free. Also, we also used to record every Thursday morning, 9:30 Eastern time when it was Pete and I. We've been kind of bouncing around because my guest speakers have different schedules and stuff. But if you're subscribed to me on Facebook, and I use different names. Sometimes I call it Flakebook. Sometimes I call it Two Facebook. So it's all the same thing. Or YouTube, I also call it ZooTube. If you're subscribed to my channels, when we have a live podcast like what we're doing now, because when we record the podcast, we live stream. And the reason why we do that is so people can ask questions. So if you're on Facebook or if you're on YouTube, you can use those comments or those channels to send us questions while we're recording. If you're subscribed to me there, then it will pop up that we're live. Okay, so you'll know when we're live. Okay, so enough of that. We made Emma happy with all the technical things now. Emma is Jesse's sister and used to be, or still is, my assistant, but she's not full-time anymore. So let's start the podcast. And no BS today. I'm just going to jump right in. So here we go. We're on the diving board and we're jumping right in the deep end of this swimming pool.
Got my coffee ready to go.
Okay, there you go. So the desires, wants, needs, and create. I'm going to do that again. The desires, wants, needs, and cravings of most humans are obvious once you know what to look for. The hungry man feels contractions in his stomach.
Oh boy.
The sick man feels pain. The overweight feels embarrassed, discomfort, and possibly shame. The desire for satisfaction or for relief displays itself openly. So in other words, these are the symptoms of a disease. Correct. And the disease is what the person that has it is thinking they have. Like if they think they're overweight, the symptoms are, that's the disease: embarrassment, discomfort, and possible shame. If a person thinks they have pain, whether they do or not, they're going to have certain symptoms. Okay? Agreed.
I agree.
Find this apropos after I just came through a very devastating COVID experience.
Yes.
All right. And if you're careful with observation, so Jess, what does observation mean to you?
I mean, observation is when we look around and we notice things, right? It's an idea of being fully aware of your surroundings and observing them.
Right. So here's the thing that I would like to say. Is it possible that when you're observing something, and I'm off script here, when you're observing something, that you will see it in the tainted light of your own opinions?
Absolutely. It's like when you want a new car, right? And it's like you've been thinking about that Honda Pilot, and all of a sudden you see that Honda Pilot everywhere, and you're like,
Right.
oh my God, right? All of a sudden,
There's a lot of them. Everybody's got one.
everybody's got one but me, right? It's like your viewpoint changes because you're thinking about it. It's in your brain. Yeah.
So my point is that observation isn't always true.
Okay.
So you might think you're looking at something and observing it, but the circuitry in your mind alters that observation to your liking.
Absolutely.
Or disliking.
Yep.
So you have to be careful with observation.
Yep.
Right? I'll give you a classic example. If I turn my head and I say, what do you see? You can only say you see one ear. You can't say you see two ears.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
Because you know I have two ears.
Right.
But when you're observing it, you'll say, I see his ears.
Yep.
No, you only see one ear. When
Right.
I turn, when I profile my head, so you only see one side.
Yeah.
So observation is a very unusual thing.
It can be.
Right? So
the eye of the beholder.
there you go. That's a great way to put it. And so I'll read that again. And if you're careful with observation, that's why I say careful with observation, announces both its wants and needs. So if you observe some of these symptoms, and oh yeah, by the way, in creative real estate, after you do it and after you do it for a while and you talk to enough people, you will soon, much like a doctor, notice that the symptoms are common.
Mm-hmm.
Right? The symptoms are not like this vast amount of hundreds and hundreds of different problems. Now, I learned this in a very interesting book, which is, I think, called Unlimited Selling Power by Des Moines, I think is his name. And if you're a salesperson, that is about the only book, that and Jim Camp's book. You read those two books and you will be a master salesperson. When I read those books, I went from a 20 to 25% closing ratio with the company that I work for in California to a 40 and 45% close ratio and the number one guy. And it put me into the management position because of those two books. Okay?
Pretty powerful.
Yeah. So they talk about in Unlimited Selling Power, I think is the name of it, by Des Moines, that there's objection, stalls, and resistance. So you'll tell somebody, would you like this car? Would you like to buy this Pilot, Jesse? No, I really don't like the color. Right?
Yep.
So that's a stupid example, but that's an objection.
Right.
Or it's a stall, or it's a resistance.
Right.
Grant Cardone says in his sales book, I forgot the name of it, Sell or Be Sold, I think it is. Okay. Grant Cardone says in his sales book that 85% of objection, stalls, and resistance are complaints. They're not actually objection, stalls, and resistance, and you should not take them up.
It's so true. People love to complain.
The reason why especially when they got a listener. So the reason why I'm bringing this up is not because we have to be salespeople and not because we have to be tricky and slick and all that. We don't have to do that. I'm going to teach that to you today. But the reason why I'm bringing this up is because Des Moines said in his book, there's between 13 and 18 objection, stalls, and resistance in any subject. It is that way with your symptoms of creative real estate deals. There's only about a dozen, maybe a few more symptoms of people that are selling their house. So once you get your head wrapped around, oh, there's only a dozen or so, it becomes manageable in your mind. Now you can start to listen to them and find those symptoms and know how to handle them. Does this make sense?
Yeah, absolutely.
So it's not this vast array of like every person I talk to is going to have a different symptom,
Symptom.
right?
Yeah.
Once you start talking to people, you're going to start noticing there's a commonality of these symptoms.
Yeah.
This is what's going to make you a pro, because if you know what those dozen are, you'll have persuasive or correct responses. They don't even have to be persuasive because that's a little derogatory, but you'll have the right responses that are logical and make sense to the seller and keeps the conversation going.
Yeah.
I'm going to tell you right now, and then I'm going to end my rants. I'm going to tell you right now, the only way you are going to buy real estate creatively is to get past your neediness and find out theirs.
Yeah, it's so true. You have to go in with a clean slate yourself and make sure that you're ready and confident and ready to rock in order to handle whatever problems your seller might have.
Exactly. Pete used to tease me. He used to go through this whole thing about, on the prospect suspect sheet and this and that and fill out all these like, he said this and he said that. And he would ask me, do you want to look at the prospect suspect sheet? We'd be in the car.
Yeah.
He would try 2 or 3 times to give it to me. And we talked about this in some past podcasts. I'm like, no, Pete, I don't want any of that. Just give me the numbers. Give me the math. I want to make sure mathematically it will work.
Makes sense. Yep.
The reason why is because I didn't want his opinion or his misobservation or his idea of what we should do to influence me. Because I've had that happen. I've had acquisition managers and they've done that. And I go in the house thinking that the seller said something to the person, the acquisition manager, the person that's supposed to be collecting the data.
Right.
And totally miss it and lose a deal.
Yeah.
So my theory is I want to hear from the horse's mouth.
I think that kind of goes.
I never bought a house from a horse. I want to make it. I want to hear from the horse's mouth. Go ahead. Sorry.
I was just going to say, I think that kind of goes back to like what we were talking about last week, right? Like, don't look at the pictures.
Right.
Don't look at it's kind of similar, right? Don't look at the pictures of the house. Like,
right.
You got to get the data. And, because I think most often what's so cool about creative real estate is there is a deal for virtually every house. Like, it's pretty rare that you can't find some kind of
interesting you say that, because I just had this conversation with Peter at the beginning of this week.
Yeah.
Every seller is motivated.
Yes.
We call them suspects because they don't fit into our program, which is getting a discount or taking monthly payments.
Right.
If they're not willing to do one of those two things, we call them a suspect. They're not a suspect somewhere else. They're not a suspect to a end user that's willing to pay the full asking price and go get a mortgage. They're a prospect for them.
Yep. Yeah.
Right? So it's interesting.
Yeah.
So Jess, do you remember, and we are way over target here because I got a long podcast today. Do you remember when you were a little girl?
Yeah.
You were a teenager.
Oh God.
And being a dad, you were I hope you're not embarrassed, but you were developing.
Yeah.
I was worried about boys.
Yeah. I do remember that.
So the number one thing that I taught you, if you remember, was
I remember. Can I guess?
Go ahead.
Look, don't listen. Actions
exactly right.
Louder than words.
Every boy is going to want to get in your pants because that's just what teenage boys want. Okay? AKA being one and being around them.
Right.
So if he says to you, I'll meet you at 2:00 on Thursday, and he doesn't show up, you know where he stands. He's a storyteller and doesn't exactly want anything except what he wants, which is the fun part.
Man, did I meet a lot of storytellers.
Right? So we do the same thing with our sellers, which, by the way, that's how you build trust with someone is if you do what you say you're going to do, then it's much better. Now, this is way off topic. It's way too deep. So let's get back to the podcast, which, by the way, just to finish that up, what I do is I install 2 or 3 things that I'm going to do. Like I'm going to go get the tax record and I'm going to go talk to my attorney and I'm going to go do this. And then I call them back the next day and say, okay, here's the tax, here's this, here's that. And I show them, naturally, I don't tell them I'm doing this, but I show them that I'm trustful because I did what I said I was going to do.
Absolutely.
And if you do that between 3 and 6 times in any relationship, you become trustworthy. Okay? All right. So I'm going to read what I read before and get back onto the podcast. And if you are careful with observation, it announces both its wants and needs, and will respond favorably and wholeheartedly, even immediately, to what is felt to achieve its aims. Okay? Deep words there, but I'm going to get to this in a minute. We're going to stop talking this way in a minute and get some examples. Therefore, and this is the punchline, therefore, the recognition and magnification of desire is first and foremost the obvious task at making creative real estate deals. What is the desire of the seller, aka motivation? The sooner you can find out what the barrier is of them selling or what they think the problem is, and it's not even what the problem is, because a lot of gurus teach, find the solution. Bullshit. No, bullshit. Yep. The solution is not what you're looking for. You're looking for the desire, the motivation.
Yep.
That's behind the solution.
Absolutely. You got to get to the root of it. Motivation is what drives it. Yeah.
Okay. But before we dive into the details on how to do this, we need to cover the main reason you can't get from here to there. This is the number one reason I find with all my students that they don't do deals, or they have trouble getting off the runway. They got a plane and they're running the runway and the plane never lifts off the runway. It's neediness. There's my grandson. Good morning, Max. It's neediness. Okay? In other words, have to have it, or a must-have. When you get into a must-have, I must have it, that it's just nasty. What most don't realize is that this sneaks through the air of the deal, much like the odor of bread cooking in a grocery store. Okay? It's just there. Okay? By the way, the true magic with neediness, which I said earlier, is to get past your neediness and find out what the seller's is as quick as possible. When you master that skill, you will make more deals. That is the exact thing that you need to master to do multiple deals a month.
Absolutely. That makes a lot of sense.
So why do I harp on this today? Why am I ranting about this for 20 minutes? This one thing could change your potential ability to find deals and easily talk to sellers. Okay? Let me explain. The secret I have been alluding to is this, that nobody else talks about, much less teaches it, but I've got the balls to do it because it's not an easy topic to wrap your head around. Look for sellers like you.
I like that. Look for sellers like you.
Right. So like Jessie, not to pick on her, but she's a how do I explain this? So she's a woman in the workforce and deals with that, right? Which, had I not gotten some of her perspective, probably wouldn't understand some of the things she goes through. So she's a woman with children in the workforce that deals with stuff, life, right? She is very in tune with that, right? She is very, I don't want to say strong-headed. I'm strong-headed. She's not. She's determined to get the things that she wants.
It's true.
Okay. And she's very good at it. She's degreed. She's well liked in her offices where she works. She's definitely management material or becoming management material. All these are descriptions of dad talking about his daughter. But what if she wanted to buy real estate? Wouldn't it make sense that she would go into those arenas and talk to those sellers?
Absolutely.
It would take half of the script talk out of the conversation because, well, I'm getting ahead of myself. So look for sellers like you. What you do is talk to an inventory of your available resources. Then go find sellers you can help with those resources. Let me give you some examples. And this is huge. I don't talk about this enough. I always talk about it like a by the way. Okay, but today I'm not.
All right.
First example, you have no capital, right? Never did a deal before, and you're nervous about what to say to sellers. You're just green, and you just kind of want to go out there and check it out. You're worried about risk. You don't want to get into something and then have to pay for it for the next 20 years because you made a mistake.
Yep.
Okay. So if that's the case, then you market for, because whatever you market for is what you're going to get. You market for slot deals and rent-to-own deals. Okay. If you don't know what slot deals are or rent-to-own deals are, go to flippinghousesforrookies.com. All the way at the bottom of the page, I give away a free course that we used to sell for several $100s, and it teaches you, and it gives you way too much information. There's an entire course there that has videos, and it describes how you do the math, how you find them, all that kind of stuff. It's a free course, okay? I would venture to say at one point of your life, you've rented a place to live.
Absolutely.
Right? And if you have, you're trained on how to do a slot deal or a rent-to-own deal. It's not much more complicated than that. And if you go into the description and click on the link, that 14-day email course will take you the 14 steps to buy and sell, including doing the paperwork. It takes you through where to find them. We use Facebook. Where to find them. There's a guide I made on how to go on Facebook and what to do and how to find these people, step by step.
Cool.
Okay. So if you're in that position, so your resources are, you don't have capital, you don't know what to say, you're brand new and never did a deal before, and the only resource you have is that you rented a place in the past and have dealt with a landlord, so that's your available resource, right?
Yeah.
So use that resource to your advantage and go make $3,000, $5,000, $8,000, $10,000 on a deal.
Totally.
Okay. Next example. Suppose you have 20 grand or 10 grand or 5 grand, 5, 10, 20, maybe up to $50,000. Maybe. You don't need that much. But 5, 10, 20 grand. And you want to invest in real estate. Well, go look for subject to deals. Getting the deed. The reason why is because like I'm doing one right now and I just spent about 5 grand on it. It was $500 or $600 for a dumpster. I wanted to paint the room. I wanted to clean the garden bed up. None of it I had to do. I just wanted to do it so that it doesn't sit on the market too long. So I invested, $5 grand into the property. Actually, I gave them a big down payment, which I wanted to do because I had money I had to get rid of, believe it or not, but that's another story, right? But the point is this, You could give people $5,000 moving money. You could spend $5,000 to fix it up. You don't have to do that. Not every subject to deal is like that. But you'll buy more of them if you have 5 or 10 or 20 grand. Now, here's the thing. You put in 5 or 10 grand, you get the deposit money, the non-refundable deposit money back. So you put that money back in your till and you go buy another one.
Yeah.
Right. So that's what I would do so it's matched. So now in a minute, I'm going to tell you how to find these deals. Right. But the point is your available resources are 5, 10, 20 grand. So look for subject to deals. Doesn't mean that you can't do the first ones, the rent to own or slot deals as well. But it just means that you have those available resources to go find those people. Okay. Am I too confusing here, or is this making sense?
No, I think it makes sense. I think that's the beauty of creative real estate. It's like when you're trying to buy traditionally,
there's only one way.
There's one way, but with creative real estate, it genuinely works for everyone, whether you're a buyer or a seller or trying to get started. I mean,
exactly.
There's something for everybody.
Exactly. And what I'm saying, and I'll get around to it. So a third example, maybe you have a rich uncle and plenty of cash.
Wouldn't that be nice?
Or a place to get cash. Like you have a house that's worth $300,000 and it's free and clear, and you could go get an equity line. Maybe you have an IRA that's got $500,000 in it, retirement funds, because you worked at some place for 20 years and just piled it up, right? Or your wife did, or your cousin did, whatever. You have access to some capital. Usually, and I'm going to tell you the secret of private money, usually the most amount of money we use is with retirement funds. So it's 401ks, IRAs, Roth IRAs, that kind of stuff. Okay. Now watch this. So anyways, if you have plenty of cash, well, then do fix and flips, right? You have the cash to do those, right? So those available resources are that you have the capital. If you don't have capital, don't go look for fix and flips. Don't go on the MLS looking for property if you don't have capital. Go look for slot deals and rent-to-own deals. Okay? Now, I'm going to sneak out here. I'm going to come back to this, but I'm just going to make a quick comment here. So if you don't have capital or no contractors or know how to do fix and flips, how are you going to sound to your seller? You're going to sound not confident.
Just going to say you don't have credibility.
And you don't have credibility, and or you're not going to have confidence. You're not going to know what to say because you yourself have not done that. You're better off to talk to people through your own experience than a wannabe.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, you're going to always have that first deal that you're going to have to kind of muddle your way through. But I promise you, it's better to do a fix and flip after you've done 3, 4, 5, 8, 10 slot deals or subject or rent-to-own deals and have had experience with buying and selling. Now, when you start to do that fix and flip, you have experience. You could tell your private lender, "Oh yeah, by the way, I've done 5 deals."
Absolutely.
They don't know that you're just buying and selling paper.
Right.
You just tell them, I did 5 deals. I did this address. I did this address. Right.
Yeah.
How does that make you sound to your private money lender?
It definitely builds that credibility and it builds that confidence for sure.
Exactly. Now watch this. So on these 3 deals, so on the slot deal and the rent-to-own deal, as I alluded to, you would go to Facebook Marketplace and hunt under the rent section. Now again, go to the link in the description, and you can download the 14-day email course. It's free. And in that course, there's a guide that you can actually print or look at on your computer that takes you step by step on where to go on Facebook and what to do to find these people. I also give you scripts on what to message them.
It's pretty amazing.
Okay. Now, just in case anybody's asking, why would I do all this for free? It's because I do a lot of one-on-one consultations throughout the week. So that, you could go on my website, or you can go, usually through email or to one of my meetups, and you could sign up for a free 45-minute consultation. That's not a sales pitch. That is just me talking to you as a coach and listening to your story and giving you some guidance on where you should go and what you should do as far as real estate goes. Now, probably about 30% of those calls turn into, what about coaching? What about this? But it's only if you want that. I'm not there to sell you coaching just because you're on the call. You have to qualify to be in my coaching group. Not everybody's in my coaching group. Okay. The point is this, is I found myself day after day describing this 14-day course. Some days I was good at it. Some days I wasn't. So I developed this course to take the repetitiveness out of those calls. So now I just tell those people, go to this link and do this. And then I realized, why don't I share this with everybody? So that's what I did. That's when I put it in the contest. That's when I did all that. All the dots connected for me. So that's why it's for free, is because Bill got tired of working. Imagine that. And decided to automate it. Okay. All right. So if you want a slot deal or a rent to own, you go to Facebook. You can go to Zillow too. Just go on the 14-day course, and all the manuals are there on how to do that. If you want a subject to deal, then you might look for divorced people, right? Or out of area owners, right? That's a great place to find those deals. I find them there all the time. And an out of area owner means that the tax bill is mailed to a different address than the property address.
Yep. And that's pretty easy to get. That's public information. So that's a really good place to start.
Yeah, we used to have to go to the town hall and do it, remember?
Yes, I do.
Nowadays we use, we use PropStream. It's $97 a month, but it gives you 10,000 records. Plus it gives you comps and all kinds of stuff. It's actually, PropStream is the MLS for investors. It does all kinds of stuff, comps and everything. Or if you don't want to spend $97 a month, you can go to melissadata.com and you can buy lists for, $50, $60, $30, and you can get all these criteria. They do all of that. Okay. So I use out of area owners, 0 to 30% worth of equity. So if you're looking for subject to deals, that's a perfect place to find them.
It's a sweet spot.
Yeah. And then the last one, if you want to do fix and flip, then you're going to want to look for vacant houses, which you can buy those lists on Melissa Data as well, and PropStream. You're going to want to look for houses that have liens on them, like tax liens and, all that kind of stuff, all kinds of liens, mechanics liens, all that kind of stuff. Code violations. Mm-hmm. And of course you can go to MLS, right? Yeah. That's if you have cash and you want to do that. So what I'm trying to tell you is 90% of the work is done by matching your available resources to the type of prospect you want to talk to.
Yeah.
So it's the list. It's the list of prospects that you develop. And if you align that list to your available resources, it just changes everything.
It absolutely does. It makes cold calling a little bit easier because you kind of have an idea of what deal you're looking for. And I could definitely see how that could build your confidence because you kind of have some data going into it.
Well, you might have experienced it.
Exactly. And you've been through it. And not only that, but it helps you, right, like you said before, it helps you establish that connection with your seller. It really makes it like, hey, I've gone through this before. I know what this is like. And it helps start to build that trust.
So I shouldn't say this, but I'm going to. So I got wound up in something a little crazy.
Oh boy.
So I buy a lot of books from the 40s and 50s, 30s, 40s, and 50s, especially in copywriting and direct mail. And I was reading this book, and there was this ad in this book
Oh boy.
that was outrageous.
I believe
It was one of the best ads I've ever read. It was stunning. Anyways, it's about your memory, how you can have a better memory.
Okay.
I spent 2 days doing research on this ad.
Okay.
I found the book that they were, because they didn't give me the name of the book. I found the book
Yeah.
on eBay.
Oh dear Lord.
It was written in 1957.
Wow.
And it's about how to improve your memory.
Wow.
The point that I'm trying to make is that I'm sucked into it because what he talks about is the way we think, which I'm completely in agreement with, like we were talking about before, is your entire life is made up of mental image pictures. So when you say cat to somebody, there's a mental image picture that pops up in your head of a cat. Now yours might be a brown one and mine might be a black one.
Right.
But it's a cat.
Right.
So he's talking about association of those pictures.
Yep.
So what we're talking about right now, which by the way, I've already decided that someday down the road, I'm going to train my students on scripts with memory increasing.
Yeah.
So that's the first time I've said that out loud. So anyways, my point is that if you're looking at mental image pictures and you have them in your head and you have been through divorce, you have those mental image pictures in your head of what it was like. It's going to make it a lot easier to talk to that person that's going through divorce because those pictures keep popping up in your head.
Yeah.
And you have a common reality with that person.
You can communicate it and they get it.
There you go. You have things in common, right? And that takes all of the stress of talking to a stranger away.
Sure.
So what I'm saying is back up your real estate career and do what nobody else is teaching you and pre-select the list of people that you're going to talk to so they are matching your personality.
Yeah.
And it takes the stress out of trying to do this. So it's like me talking to you, Jesse, about going to college.
Yep.
I've never done it.
Yep.
I was there with you and I have friends, but I have no idea what it's like to study for an exam.
Yeah.
I mean, I did it in high school, but that's so much different. I don't know what it's like to sit in an auditorium and listen to a professor preach at me. I don't know what it's like. I've never done that before.
Sure.
So how much commonality, how long is that conversation going to go? Unless I go study like what it's like to be in that classroom. But I've never been there.
Right.
So my reality is always going to be different than yours.
Sure.
And this is exactly what happens to novice real estate investors is they study things, but they've never experienced them. So what happens is when they start talking to sellers realize subconsciously, unaware, that this person doesn't exactly get it because they miss the little details.
Yeah.
About stepping in the puddle when they were 4 years old.
Sure.
Right? So this is profound. This is one of those podcasts that you're going to think Bill's on a rant. I'm telling you, if you listen to this podcast carefully and do what I'm telling you, it will eliminate 90% of the work. Because the truth of the matter is, the only way you are going to be someone like me that has done hundreds of deals is to talk to people.
Totally.
And get those experiences.
Mm-hmm.
Hear those stories.
Yep.
Use those stories in other presentations.
Yep.
Like I had a client that had a tax bill, and here's what we did.
Yep.
I'm using those mental image pictures to communicate what we did to the new seller. Okay. I'm beating this to death because the punchline has not shown up yet for today's podcast.
Oh man.
See, 90% of the work is done by matching your available resource to the type of prospect or prospect list you choose. Now, here's the extreme real magic. Once you understand all this theory that I'm giving you, I'm going to give you the real magic, right? Your environment, in other words, what surrounds you, is a direct result of what you believe and what you think about. So your available resources are a byproduct of your thoughts.
Absolutely.
Which means you have reality or something in common with these sellers, like we just talked about. These sellers you talk to when you do it this way. We just talked about that. In other words, they are much like you or your closest friends or whoever else you talk to a lot. Mm-hmm. Which makes me wonder why are you so nervous about talking to these people? If you make it like it's talking to your friends, or if you make it like it's people you talk to all the time, it'll be a pleasurable conversation. It won't be uncomfortable.
Mm-hmm. To that end, I mean, I've heard of people who go in their contact list, right, and send out a mass text message to everybody in their contact list. Yep. Hey, do you have a house for sale?
Yep. Or do you know someone that has a house for sale?
You know somebody who has a house for sale? It's right in your backyard. These are people you know and people you trust. I don't know about you guys, but my contact list, every person who's ever been put in my phone stays in my phone. So, there's hundreds of people that I could potentially reach out to. Some people might respond, nobody might respond, but, right in your backyard.
Exactly. And that takes like no time, no money.
Yep.
And you've told me that in the past, and I've talked about it. I've never done it, but that's a phenomenal idea. I know that you've heard of that and done that, and that's unbelievable. That's great advice.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So once you break the ice by talking to 3 to 5 people the first time, the first 3 to 5 people like this, you'll realize that all those horrible things you think were going to happen never happens. And I'm telling you this because I can't even count how many coaching students that I have worked with and poked and prodded and manipulated and convinced to go make an appointment. Okay. And they get out there. They talk to the seller, and number one thing they say is it was nothing like what I thought it was going to be. Mm-hmm. Because in your head, you build monsters. Mm-hmm. Right? You build all the bad things. And here's the reason why, to go off on a 2-minute rant. Our minds are there for survival. Mm-hmm. Our minds are a survival mechanism. Much like a deer in the woods hears a twig snap and he runs. It's a survival mechanism. With that said, our minds will always, 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 without fail, find the problems first. Which means we have a decision. We could either feed our minds with problems we want to put our attention on, or if we don't feed our minds with problems, it will find problems.
Yep.
Like the car breaks.
Yep.
Or the house needs.
Right.
Or somebody's fighting or whatever. It will find problems. And my saying in life is either you live life or life lives you.
So true.
So with that said, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, I think for me, one of the big things is you play that worst case scenario game. What's the absolute worst possible thing that could happen by talking to a seller? They say no.
Right.
I mean, do they chew you out? No, that's never happened to me before. I've
And even
talked
if they do, so what? Sticks and stones could break my stone, break
right.
whatever that saying is, right?
Yep.
Hurt my feelings or whatever it is.
You get a thick skin after a while, and you don't talk to that person again, and that's it. And they're not part of your life. They're not somebody that you're gonna talk to often.
Or if you ran into them in the grocery store, you wouldn't know who they were.
Yeah. It's so I think playing, as somebody who's, high functioning anxiety over here, you go through that game, and it's like, it really, there's not much terrible things that could happen. You're not
So go back to what you say, because I taught you that, is what's the worst that can happen? Yep. And you reel it through your mind, and you think, oh, well, I can confront that.
Right.
And then all of a sudden you're like, like you're saying.
Yep.
I'm willing to confront that. Okay, let me try it once.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
So I'm telling you, you do this 3 to 5 times, and you'll realize that sellers are not that monster you thought they were. Mm-hmm. Most of them are very, very, they're just like you or common. They're people with problems. There are a few assholes, and I have a special formula for assholes. You want to know what it is? Thank you very much, click.
Yep.
Just that simple. I appreciate you talking to me. Thank you very much, click.
Have a great day. Wish you the best.
Yeah.
See you later.
Good luck.
They're not going to get very far. Sometimes though, those assholes come back. Right? Yeah. Like some of that is they realize that their attitude's not going to get them very far. And they remember that guy who talked to me 6 months ago. Maybe I should actually listen to what he has to say this time.
36% of my houses that I buy come from my follow-up, because time changes everything.
Yes, it does.
All right. Let's end off the podcast with a bang.
Okay.
I've built up the hopefully suspense to what you need to do.
Okay.
It's summed up in one word. Honesty.
Yes.
Watch this. If you are passionate about helping your sellers, recognize and magnify their true desire for selling this house. Okay. So I want you to get this concept. A lot of people, my coaching clients, my sellers, my buyers, have a concept in their mind of what they wish they can do, or what they like, what they think they can do. But it lacks details. So it's a vagueness to them.
Right.
So your job as a creative real estate investor is to clear up that vision and give them a reality of some of the details, so that picture, that vision becomes clearer in their mind. The more clearer that picture becomes, and this is profound, I get it, but the more clearer that picture becomes, the more apt they are going to follow it.
Right.
And do what needs to be done.
Yeah.
Okay. So you and the seller, when you do this, so in other words, here's what happens. You and the seller create the offer together with this vision. What about this? And what about that? And will this work for you? And will that work for you? Okay, you said you wanted this. How about we do that? Right? And because they're like you, and because you have things in common already because of the list you chose, and because you might have gone through this before in your life, it becomes easier to talk about these things.
Absolutely.
Here's what happens. Listen to me, please. You should rewind this. If you're listening to this later, you should write this down in capital letters, because this is a natural law. If you create a deal with your seller together, in other words, you both have input, you both talk about it, you both solve the problems together, they go from being prospect to cheerleader.
Ooh. I like that.
They go from prospect to cheerleader. Because now you guys built the plan together because you had a lot in common and there was no special tricks or anything like that. It's just you and the seller having a casual, I want to say colloquial. Is that the right way to say that? Colloquial, meaning common language to them. Right?
Right. Slang. It's kind of like, not fancy. It's down to earth. It's rooted.
Right. Yeah. Conversation. Because you had something in common to begin with. Because you both went through divorce.
Right.
Or because you had a tax lien on your house once.
Yep.
Or because you had a job transfer and understand what it's like to go through a job transfer. Yep. You had a mechanic's lien on your house.
Yeah.
Because a contractor screwed you. Whatever it may be. There's something in common, and you built up that reality by having this casual conversation. I will tell you, Jess, and you are proof of this because you did this to me too. Every person I've ever taken in a house, whether it's a student or a partner or an acquisition manager, the number one thing 100% of them say every single time, the first 2 or 3 sit downs we have, I can't believe how casual it is.
Yeah.
It's not like this presentation like in a boardroom.
Right.
Always, every person says, I can't believe how casual it is.
Yeah, it's so true. And it's different, it's different too than the conversation they have with a realtor, right? I mean, totally different conversations.
Right.
And totally different approaches. And, I'm a professor and I work with students. And I do the same with them. You build that credibility in those first couple of weeks of class and find those connections with them and let them know you're listening. It's amazing the things that they will tell you and the trust that is built. And it makes for a phenomenal semester because they want to be engaged and they want to have those conversations because if you really listen to what they're saying, it's amazing what you'll hear. And, sometimes I've worked with other people who don't listen, and there is an art to it. And if you really sit down and listen and regurgitate what they're saying and prove that, it goes a long way. And it starts in the very beginning.
I had a old-time salesman teach me the most valuable lesson about talking to people.
Yeah.
He said, God gave you 2 ears and 1 mouth for a reason.
That's right.
All right.
That's
so
right.
let's sneak off here because we're at an hour and we should be at 45 minutes. Well, honesty comes in because the seller will see how passionate and honest you are about helping them. Because you're like, well, what about if we do this? Or what about if we do that? And you're honestly trying to help them. And will make a decision off of this natural enthusiasm way before you try to trick them with math or some special sentence or something like that. I can't believe how many students think if they get my scripts and say what I say, they're going to trick a seller into buying a house, or a seller selling them a house and they're going to buy a house. It's not that way. It's these things that I'm talking about in this podcast that make me different than most.
Yeah.
It's incredible.
It is.
It takes me more time to talk about it than it does to actually do it.
Yeah.
Right? More to the point, you're going to build trust.
Yes. Absolutely. Trust is so important in these conversations.
Right. So I was going to say something here. Let me back up. So I talk about in past writings and other things, the best way to understand this is you call your cell phone company, right? You have a problem with your service or your phone. How does that customer service person help you?
They listen.
There's good and they're bad.
Right. Some listen.
So the good one has you like, oh, I love T-Mobile or I love AT&T. They're so good. The other one's like, they're assholes.
Yep.
What's the difference? The difference is, did the customer service person listen to you and provide what's needed and wanted?
So true.
So you have to be the ultimate creative real estate service advisor. You listen, you observe. Like you said, the more trust, like you were talking about with your students, the more they open up, the more they talk. You need to create that environment. And I taught you how to do that today. It's profound. It may not be what you thought this podcast was about, but I promise you, if you listen to this a few times and you actually implement it, you will be that real estate investor, that creative real estate investor in your environment that's smashing it. You will be the one that everybody refers their leads to. Mm-hmm. You will be the one that will have realtors calling you with deals. How do I know all this? Right? So if you sincerely feel it, like you want to help this person, because that happens in deals, then communicate it through enthusiasm, which you'll do naturally.
Yeah.
Here we go. The end off. Here's my advice to you. When you do what we talked about today for 1 hour, scripts become toilet paper. You can't beat it. It is natural human behavior and works every single time.
Yep.
The trick is to align your list to your personality and your available resources, and it will take 90% of your work away.
Absolutely. Makes a lot of sense to me.
Thank you, Jesse, so much for being here. You're awesome. Thank you for the last minute. Yeah, that I'll help you.
Always.
Based on my statistics, when you're on, people listen more, so they like you.
Cool.
So awesome.
I like them too.
Perfect. And don't forget to go on Facebook, type in Flipping Houses for Rookies, and subscribe to our channel so that when we're doing live stream, you'll know that we're on. Also on YouTube, make sure you subscribe to our channel. By the way, on both those channels, every single week, there's an archive of dozens and dozens and dozens and dozens of videos. Or you can go to flippinghousesforrookies.com. On those channels are the videos of the podcast. Or you can go to flippinghousesforrookies.com and you scroll down on the main page, and the podcast is right there. And you can listen to, this is the 269th show. So there's a lot that you can get for free.
Absolutely.
If you do want to make an appointment with me, a one-on-one consultation, it's flippinghousesforrookies.com/free consult. And you can get on my schedule. It's flippinghousesforrookies.com/free consult. Thanks again. Next week, I got the guest speaker is supposed to be here this week. Is going to be here next week. It's actually a girl that is from another country that buys houses in the United States virtually.
That's pretty cool.
And we're going to talk about how to do that. Okay. Thanks for all the support from you guys, because I get a lot of support. Support tickets, if you go to flippinghousesforrookies.com, top right-hand side is contact me, and I answer all the support tickets, not a VA. So thank you for all the support. Thank you for all the comments. Thank you for all the get well wishes that I got while I was ill. I can't tell you how proud I am of the clan that we have and how we all support one another. Okay? Over and out. Have a good day.
Thanks for tuning in to the hottest real estate topics on the planet with Bill and Pete. If you want to continue learning how to buy and sell real estate without money or credit, head over to flippinghouses.club for some cutting-edge real estate wealth tools. Or contact us at info@flippinghouses.club.